Thank you again for coming. My name is Bruce Landsberg. I'm the Vice Chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board, and I'm joined this afternoon with Dr. Jennifer Rohde, who is our investigator in charge, who is here from Denver. Today we're going to give you an update on the ongoing investigation that started yesterday in the crash of a King Air, Super King Air 350i. And we have a picture of it here. This is an exemplar aircraft. Maximum seating capacity is 11 seats. We know from our investigation so far that there were 10 people on board, so pretty much a full load. Speed on the aircraft, maximum speed 312 knots. The takeoff distance under what they consider standard conditions is 3,300 feet. That means the aircraft is fully loaded, and that's done at sea level and at what we call standard temperature, which is 59 degrees. That's not how it usually is here in Dallas in the summertime, so the takeoff distance is going to be a bit longer. The maximum range on the aircraft is about 1,800 miles, and what I put on the bottom there is the distance from Addison to St. Petersburg, which is where the flight was filed to, is approximately 800 nautical miles if you go directly. Air traffic control never lets you go directly, but that kind of gives you a bit of an idea. There were some questions yesterday about the tail number of the airplane, and here's what we know right now. It was in the process of being changed. So I'm going to give you both tail numbers. They all start with an N or November. That's the international identification for U.S.-based aircraft. So the tail number was November 534 FF, or Foxtrot, Foxtrot. November 534 Foxtrot, Foxtrot. It was in the process of being changed, according to the FAA's records, to November 511 Echo Foxtrot. November 511 Echo Foxtrot. The aircraft ownership, based on, again, FAA records, was EE Operations LLC. EE Operations LLC. At this point, it looks as if the flight was considered Part 91, which is personal flight. That means that you're not allowed to charge for passengers on board. FAA is continuing to look at that area. Last night, around 10:30, our team recovered the cockpit voice recorder, and it is being downloaded now in the Washington, D.C. laboratory of the NTSB. We don't know exactly what's on the recorder, but what the recorders do, the CVR as we refer to them, will capture external communications on the aircraft between the crew and air traffic control, and of particular interest to us is the internal cockpit conversation between the pilot and the co-pilot. So we don't know exactly what's on that, but we'll hope to have an update on that possibly by tomorrow. The other thing we may be able to get out of, and I stress may, is that there may be some background noise that is picked up by the CVR, which will give us a little better idea of what's going on with the airplane itself. We've gotten some interviews, so far I think 2 interviews, and we have of witnesses, and we expect to have some more coming forward. Dr. Rohde, could you tell us a little bit about the structure situation?
Absolutely. The team was able to identify through the support of our drone team that all 4 corners of the airplane arrived at the accident scene. What that means is the external right wing, the external left wing, the tail feathers or the empennage of the airplane, and the nose of the airplane. Remnants of all of those have been positively identified at the scene, which leads us to believe that all of the airplanes, so everything in between those 4 external points, also arrived at the accident scene and were involved in the impact sequence.
Thank you. We're looking at the air traffic control radar data at this point and their communications. What we know at this point is the communication seemed to be completely normal. In other words, the pilots were cleared for takeoff, they acknowledged takeoff, and at this point we are not aware of any further communication between the crew and air traffic control. Again, the CVR will give us more data as that gets downloaded. Could you talk a little bit about systems and where we are in that?
The team was able to identify that the landing gear was down at the time of the impact. Unfortunately, due to the extensive post-impact fire and damage incurred during the impact sequence, other systems are virtually destroyed, and at this time we do not believe we'll be able to establish positive conditions for other systems and flight controls.
The FAA is now working on looking for the maintenance records of the aircraft. Anytime there's any maintenance done on an airplane, it will be documented by a certificated mechanic. These airplanes are required to undergo an annual inspection. This airplane is about 2 years old, so it would have gone through at least 2 annual inspections at this point. Any modifications that were made to the aircraft will also be documented. The FAA is also looking at the pilot records as we speak, and will look at their certification and any training that they have had. As we mentioned yesterday, this aircraft requires a type rating, which means that the pilots must have specific training in the King Air 350. It's a single pilot aircraft, so it can be flown by just one pilot. We know that there were 2 crew members on board. Anything more you want to say about drones?
So we had a drone team on scene today that was able to document the external and internal damage to the hangar that was impacted during the accident sequence, in addition to doing aerial documentation of the wreckage both inside and outside of the hangar.
This morning we had an organizational meeting to establish the parties of the investigation. So these are the people who have the technical background, frequently the manufacturer, to give us more detail about the aircraft itself. They do not assist in the analysis part or in the determination of probable cause. They only help us to determine what was going on with that particular part of the airplane. So the parties to the investigation include the FAA, as I've already mentioned, Textron Aviation, who was the manufacturer of the airplane, Hartzell Propeller, who made the propellers, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, and Pratt & Whitney, Canada, who made the engines. Dr. Rohde, would you tell us a little more about Pratt & Whitney?
The Pratt & Whitney engines are manufactured in Canada through ICAO Annex 13. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada is an accredited representative to our investigation, and Pratt & Whitney Canada works through the Transportation Safety Board of Canada as a technical liaison to our investigation.
We've got some photos now we'd like to share with you, and these will be released at about 4:30 Central Daylight Time on www.ntsb.gov. So let's go through a couple of those. Here you see a drone shot of the hangar, and you can see the runway in the background. This is the parallel taxiway here. The aircraft was taken off in this direction, and from what we can tell, veered off the runway and was in the process of rolling when it struck the hangar. So we're looking out this way. The aircraft entered here and exited down here, which is where the fuselage was. Anything to add?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the looking in the other direction now. So this is looking from the runway, and this is where the aircraft entered into the hangar. And you can see some debris on the top of the hangar, which we will at some point need to recover. It's not safe to go up there right now. This is a view inside the hangar, looking from the front. We have a Falcon 50 jet we mentioned last evening that was heavily damaged by the fire, and there was a helicopter which is not shown. The entry point, again, here, and the aircraft caught fire somewhere along here and then exited out the back of the hangar area. The hangar was equipped with a sprinkler system which helped to suppress the fire. I'll now take your questions. Please raise your hand. I'll call on you, and then give us your affiliation and your name, and we'll go from there. Yes, ma'am.
If you guys recovered a voice recorder, is that the same thing as a black box? If not, was a black box equipped in this plane, and was that recovered?
Did we recover a black box, and is it a voice recorder or is it something else? This is a cockpit voice recorder. This particular one is encased in a black box, so you could call it a black box. Most of them are orange, but this only records voice. It does not record the flight characteristics of the aircraft. This airplane was not equipped with a flight data recorder. Sir?
Is NTSB looking at seeing similarities between this craft and the first craft of the Beechcraft BE soon after takeoff in Honolulu?
Is the NTSB looking at similarities between this crash and the King Air crash in Honolulu? I don't think we're in the position quite yet to do that. They are different types of aircraft, and we take each accident on its own. Obviously, at some point there might be a further analysis of various makes and models, but these are two completely different models. Dr. Rohde, do you have anything more to add on that? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So to be clear, the aircraft did not make it off the ground, never made it off the ground.
The information we have in the video that we saw was that the airplane was airborne. So the airplane had gotten airborne and then veered to the left of the runway and then started to roll to the left. And it was in the process of rolling when it collided with the hangar. Yes, sir.
Jacob here at NTSB. So did the plane roll upside down when it made impact into the hangar? That's one question. And how much of a factor is the weight of the plane, the weight of the fuel and passengers? Might there have been too much luggage on the plane?
Okay. Did the aircraft roll completely upside down, and is weight considered a factor? I think we're going to have to study a little bit more about exactly what the angle of the aircraft was. We have just a preliminary video. Dr. Rohde, you want to talk a little bit more about that, or do you have? Yep.
So we'll be pulling in a performance group that will be working primarily back in Washington, D.C., and they will be reviewing all of the video that is coming into us, taking into consideration the frame rates and location where the different videos were taken, and seeing if they can ascertain greater details to establish how fast and how far the aircraft rolled during the accident sequence and then during the impact sequence.
That's a good question, but we can't quite yet determine exactly where we are, so that will be looked at very, very closely. The other question regarding weight, that's a work in progress, so we will be looking at that. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that the plane was licensed to do private flights. I'm wondering if you can explain what the relationship is between the victims, the passengers on board, and the owners of the aircraft. Also, that you can clear up the discrepancy over the tail number. Was the new tail number actually on the plane, and is that something significant that we should read into at all?
There's a lot of meat in those questions. So the first thing is personal flight means that no money changes hands. So somebody may fly an aircraft and take their friends with them as long as they do not charge for the flight. At this point, we don't know exactly what the circumstances are or the relationship of all of the parties on the aircraft. So that is ongoing, and the FAA will take a look. Second part of the question?
Was just about the tail numbers,
Oh.
whether we should read it in the
Yeah,
whether the new tail number was actually printed on the plane or gold.
I can't answer at this time whether the new tail number was on. The FAA had registration information that said that the aircraft was registered under the new tail number, which I provided to you. Whether it was actually on the aircraft, I don't know. Yes, sir.
David Snow, I'm the pilot that's out here and saw the whole thing yesterday. It didn't just roll. It made a low turn. It wasn't making power like King Air should. And it didn't hit the hangar when it rolled. It looks like it stalled, spun. So it was 90-degree knife edge when it fell out of the sky. So it made a shallow turn, probably about 120 degree or 110 degree heading. And then just, I mean, you guys know what stall spin is. Many of you in the news split it up. But it went 90-degree knife edge into the hangar. It didn't hit the hangar when it looks like it stalled when it hit, unfortunately.
I don't think there was a question in that, but we will continue to analyze things to make absolutely sure that we have it right. So, yes, sir.
Are you looking at recent flight history of this aircraft that's in the last week or two? I know there was one flight in the last week that kind of be turned back to Addison. I don't know if that's helping my investigation.
I believe that the FAA will be looking at everything that they can possibly get on the flights. If the flight was flying under instrument, I believe the FAA will be looking at all of the flights. If the aircraft was on an instrument flight plan, and usually they are, these flights will be tracked. Yes, ma'am.
My name is CBS News. Just to follow up on the weight situation. This plane was fully loaded and it was a private plane. Who's in charge of making sure that these planes are within weight regulation?
Who's in charge of being sure that the aircraft is properly loaded? That belongs to the pilot in command of the aircraft. So the pilot is responsible for making sure that the aircraft is properly loaded. Yes, sir.
Sir, there were 4 members of the same family who were tragically killed in this flight. Could you got a little more detail on what on them, what their destination was, and where they were going? And also, did all the passengers know each other? Do you know?
Okay, the question was the flight plan and the relationship of the passengers. We know that the aircraft had an instrument flight plan on file from Addison Airport to St. Petersburg. That's Papa India Echo is the identifier. We do not know all of the relationships of the people in the aircraft, and that's really not within the NTSB's purview. We're more interested in the specific challenges along the way. Yes, sir.
So the question regarded the lack of flight data recorder information and the obstacles or challenges that were met to conduct an investigation without the value of that information. It certainly adds a different aspect to it. While we do not have that information, we can go the long way around through long math performance calculations, witness scars, frame rates off of videos to ascertain what the performance of the aircraft was, radar data, which can also be extremely valuable in establishing what the performance of the aircraft is. So while it does not provide us direct answers, it does not completely close the door as to what our options are as we move forward.
When do you expect to know the cause of the crash?
Sir, stand by. The other, to follow up on your second question, for Part 135 or charter operations, the NTSB has made a recommendation that they have flight data recorders on board. Since this was not, as we know up to this point, a charter operation, they are not required for people flying their personal aircraft. And as Dr. Rohde has mentioned, it does make it much easier for us to do this, to analyze the accidents. But NTSB has been doing accident analysis for a very long time, and usually we can get pretty close. I'll take 2 more questions. Yes, sir.
Can you describe, I think yesterday you mentioned that you have 3 pieces of video. Can you just describe what those are and what they show? And secondly, the medical examiner's office is reporting questions about the victims to the NTSB. I'm just wondering when we'll get the names and ages of the victims.
I'm going to let you answer that.
So I'll have you repeat your first question, but to your second question, the second question regarded the identification and information regarding to the victims. The National Transportation Safety Board does not release any victim names, so that information will have to come from local law enforcement or to the coroner's office, and we will work with everybody to ensure that that role is understood, and when positive identification and notification of next of kin has taken place, that information will be shared when it's appropriate. And your question, your second
video.
The video.
What the videos show.
Absolutely. So as Vice Chairman Landsberg stated earlier, the video shows the aircraft depart from the runway environment, drift off to the left, and then initiate a roll to an unknown degree, again to the left, and then impact the building, and shortly thereafter we see the smoke that's associated with the post-impact fire. The videos were taken by security cameras located throughout the airport.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. 2 questions. When do you expect to have determined all of that and all that?
Okay, so...
I'm sorry. And secondly, how high was the airplane?
Okay, 2 questions. First, how long will it take to complete the investigation? And secondly, how high was the aircraft when it started to depart controlled flight? To the first question, I suspect we will have preliminary data in about 2 weeks. Yeah, so we should have preliminary data in about 2 weeks. In terms of the factual stage, which is the next level of investigation, that involves a lot more detail because then we have to analyze the data. That could take 18 months, depending upon the complexity and where the investigation takes us, and then we go to probable cause after that. Second question, I don't think we know yet how high the aircraft was, do we? No, we don't know that yet. Yes, sir, you have the honor of the last question.
NTSB report showed 500 feet, but I don't know if that's accurate or not. But on the CDR reporting, the cockpit voice recorder, which would be the first indicative thing of the problem in the plane, is NTSB able to release those findings when they come out? I mean, I know how the investigations work, and it can be a long time, but for people wanting to know answers so badly, hearing what's going on communication-wise with the pilots would be the first indicative thing of something going on. Are you guys able to release that, or do you have to wait for the NTSB final ruling in the whole investigation before CDR takes you to release?
Cockpit voice recorders are protected by federal law, and the recordings cannot be released before the investigation is complete. That said, a transcript or a partial transcript may be developed during the course of the investigation when the public docket is open, which could be before the final determination is made. The transcript from the CVR will be shared with the public.
Thank you all very much for being with us, and we'll keep you advised as things develop. So thank you so much.
We don't have a date of briefings. We have a date of briefings.